Now joined on the programme by Hannah Weisfeld, the Executive Director and founder of Yachad, which is an organisation that supports a political resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Hannah, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. What does it mean, this notion, this concept of a political resolution? I understand it doesn't mean a military solution. So what does it mean? What are you advocating?
Well, what we advocate for is a political resolution to the conflict, which is based around two states for two people. So what we've seen in the past 7 weeks is obviously the horror of everything you've just discussed today with your correspondent. And this idea that we can continue to allow this conflict to kind of fester in the status quo that it's been in of no resolution for the past 50 plus years is not one that will lead us towards any kind of long-term peaceful resolution. So what we do is work within the British Jewish community and within Parliament here to build support for ultimately what is the only way out of this conflict long-term, which is a political resolution in which Israelis and Palestinians have safety, security and independence in states of their own.
So you're talking about the two-state solution that we've heard a great deal of for many, many years. How near or far are you from achieving this goal? Because at this point, it's looking, I imagine, less likely than it's ever looked before, isn't it?
Yes, and I mean, to be clear, we as the British Jewish organisation are not going to achieve that goal. The role we play is here in the UK, which is how can we build political support within here as British citizens and as British Jews specifically for our government and the UK to take a role in making that resolution happen. Now, the reality is that it almost sounds laughable to talk about a resolution to this conflict when we look at the images that your viewers are seeing now, even on the screen, that we are so far away from that. But I think in some respects, what this conflict has done is remind everyone that not resolving it is totally disastrous for everybody in the region, for Israelis and Palestinians, but it also endangers the rest of the world. So, we've seen Antony Blinken play shuttle diplomacy around the Middle East on and off for the past 7 weeks, trying to stop this conflict from spilling over from Lebanon, from Yemen. At the moment, it looks like that has been contained. But this is right on the brink of becoming a much broader conflict in which the rest of the world would be pulled in. And so there really is no other choice long term other than to find a way to bring the partners around the table with the international community backing them and to put peace back on the agenda.
When you say a two-state solution, where geographically do you have in mind to establish the two states?
Well, I don't know how many of your viewers will even necessarily know the kind of geography and the map, but the West Bank and the Gaza are divided with Israel in the middle. And so the understanding has always been, and the parameters of every previous peace negotiation has always been, that the West Bank and Gaza would become a future Palestinian state, and there would have to be a mechanism in which those two pieces of territory could become contiguous. So whether that's through tunnels or bridges, is something for the decision of negotiators. But unless there is a Palestinian state on those two pieces of land, there will not be peace in the region. And so really, after this terrible round of fighting is over, the international community, and that, backed by the Arab world, this is not just something the West have got to get behind, but backed by the Arab world, backed by the United States and Europe and the UK, have got to build a mechanism in which that vision, that long-term vision, can be something that we all now start to strive for. Because if we return to October the 6th and the status quo that has got us where we are today, we're frankly condemning millions of Israelis and Palestinians to live the way that they're living now, which is just frankly not acceptable.
And just say why it's not acceptable.
I mean, if for my friends and family who live on the border of Gaza or who live, in the center of Israel, and rockets, they haven't for the last 5 days, but rockets have continued to rain down on, on large parts of Israel through this conflict. Or for those that live on the border of, the border of Gaza, it is not acceptable to live in a situation where your life can be that endangered from the possibility of a terrorist organization infiltrating and committing the crimes that Hamas committed on October the 7th. And equally for the Palestinian people to live, both in the West Bank and Gaza, to have kind of live under the bombardment that Gazans, 2.5 million Gazans have lived under for the past 7 weeks as a result of that Hamas attack, but also without independence and You know, it's not just, you know, we're not, you know, when we talk about Palestinians, we're not just talking about the people inside Gaza. There are millions of Palestinians, over 2 million in the West Bank. And since the 7th of October, there has been large and significant violence against them from extremist settlers. Over 1,000 of them have been displaced and over 200 have been killed, not just by settlers, but also in skirmishes with the Israeli Defense Forces. That is not a way for Palestinians to live either. You know, both peoples need to have security, freedom and dignity. And if Israel doesn't have security and the Palestinian people don't have freedom and dignity, there won't be any resolution to this conflict. So it's going to become incumbent upon the Palestinian people to guarantee Israel's security and incumbent upon the people of Israel to guarantee the Palestinian people freedom and dignity. And that is the basis for moving forward from this terrible mess that we're currently in.
And many people think those are very wise words and very compassionate, kind, inclusive, decent words and a good way to map out a future, but it just at this particular time almost feels as if you're expressing a kind of fairy tale fantasy. Some people will see it as a prayer and many people will wish for it to come true. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Very interesting to hear from you, Hannah.